Welcome to the Barrier Breakdown, Disrupting Mental Health podcast, where we talk about the clinical and practical issues that face those working in the mental health industry.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Barrier Breakdown, Disrupting Mental Health. My name is Erin Melano-Bailey. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Cognitive Behavior Institute, and my co-host, Dr. Kevin Caridad, CEO and owner of Cognitive Behavior Institute. This week on the Barrier Breakdown, we have with us two special guests, William Hartje and Anya Perea from Refresh Mental Health. Will leads the development efforts for Refresh with his background in corporate finance and M&A and serves as the liaison between practice owners and Refresh in facilitating successful practice acquisitions and outcomes. He is based in Jacksonville, Florida, which happens to be his hometown and the company headquarters, and in his spare time enjoys any activity involving running, biking, or swimming. Anya is a master's level clinician and business executive who has dedicated her career focus in both educational and clinical settings. She has served as a head of school for a private, middle, and high school, therapist, strategy and business consultant, and served on the leadership teams for clinical treatment programs. She is passionate about identifying clinical savvy experts and developing them to operate at the highest level of their business capacity. Will and Anya, thank you so much for being with us this week on the Barrier Breakdown. We're very excited to have you both.
Thank you for having us. Looking forward to being here. So thank you.
So we'll go ahead and dive right in. Can you tell us a little bit about how you both got into the mental health field, as well as a little bit of background on Refresh Mental Health?
Yes, I'm happy to start. Well, I was born, I'm one of 6 children. So I often think that being in that large of a family, you get to see a lot of different clinical opportunities and issues. So I've just loved working with young adults and adolescents for many, many years, and to serve and to identify wellness and well-being for me is a really worthy life pursuit. So that kind of led me there.
And how about you, Will? How did you get involved into mental health?
Yeah, so I found myself into this industry, stumbled upon it. My background was and is in behavioral and finance, and studied behavioral economics, and worked in the investment banking space, covering healthcare companies, and really happened chance met our founder and CEO Steve Gold just as he was starting Refresh Mental Health back in the fall of 2017. And took a chance, and have since been in this space from that time, and so not a clinician myself, but I'm surrounded by people like Anya who are clinical and have come from the industry, and I think it also provides a a different perspective for this industry.
Absolutely. And what can you tell us about Refresh Mental Health?
Sure. So I'll give a quick background on how we came about. So our founder, Steve Gold, had this idea of bringing together these outpatient mental health practices, and really had this proof of concept back in all the way back to 2014. He's been in the field for over a decade, and saw this need that there are these outpatient practices that are, going about and doing their best to, provide the best care, but also really battling with, the commercial insurance companies on their own, and trying to get the best talent that they can, and that's tough. And a lot of these folks, got into the field as clinicians themselves, maybe a private practice. They wake up a decade later and they have this large group practice, and they find themselves being an operator and not seeing any clinicians anymore, whether that was their intent or not. And so this proof of concept where he brought these practices together and under one roof, and that is something that he found not only to work, but also to resonate with some of these practice owners.
Absolutely.
So he started this with his own capital, and fast forward to 2017, having some additional financial capital behind us to really take this off and do this, across the nation. So I got involved early on with the company and really on the development efforts, which, to translate, that's really us having these conversations with these clinic owners to find out if this is of value to them. And for some, it won't be, but for others, it's a it kickstarts the conversation around what their goals are, and where they want to be, and and where they want to be spending their time. So we've thoughtfully grown now over the last kind of 3.5 years, and are now in about 28 states and over 2,000 clinicians. Practice, in the outpatient mental health domain, which we have psychiatry practices, we have psychology practices, therapy practices, and everything in between. So we're really fortunate. It's something that is resonating in this industry, and we're really proud to be part of about this organization.
Okay, so I'll just add that I had the good fortune of meeting Steve Gold, our CEO, and our COO, Kristen Scheel, and Steve's father, Dr. Mark Gold, many years ago. And just about 2014, worked with them in another organization where a lot of this groundwork that Will was talking about was laid for Refresh Mental Health, just recognizing the thought leaders in the space and where we're headed. In mental health as a nation, just getting really excited and identifying ways to align and ways to improve access. So that's a really nice opportunity. When we're looking for practices, we are looking for, again, outpatient mental health. And I really appreciate the focus on outpatient. You see a lot of these groups gravitating towards, prior to Refresh, towards more residential treatment facilities and things of that nature. But recognizing that the impact overall of outpatient mental health, the ability to drive outcomes, to sustain well-being, is really our focus and in our drive. So outpatient practices ranging from 10 to 50, I'm sure we've done more or more providers, is really what we're looking for in terms of a group that we are interested in partnering with. And also the clinical modalities. We range from, trauma-based, CBT, TMS. We really value all of the treatment modalities and recognize that what works for one might not work for all, and to provide those best practices, standard of care, and provide a platform where our providers, our leaders of these organizations that we're partnering with can come together, they communicate, they discuss best practices. It's an opportunity for all of the clients, be it in Pennsylvania, New York, Montana, wherever the location is, they are offered this greater opportunity and greater bag of tools and skill sets to provide good therapy for. So it's a nice opportunity.
Great.
Can you speak to more of the practices you're referring to? Is it kind of mixed commercial insurance? Is it with Medicare? Is it Medicaid? What does that dynamic look like?
Yeah, certainly. Right now, we focus on all areas. We do have a lot of practices that are private pay. We have practices that are Medicaid, insurance-based. As Will was mentioning earlier, we are really looking for that access to healthcare. And oftentimes, access to healthcare does have that financial kind of component to it. So folks are looking and seeking to use their insurance to pay for this treatment. That said, being a clinician myself, working in group practices, and we recognize that a lot of providers get the short end of the stick when they're accessing insurance because the splits, the reimbursement rates, we can go on and on. In addition to the split, there's the headache of dealing with it, the administrative work. It's not necessarily natural or a favored, preferred activity. So we recognize that can be a bit of a stop for a reason as to why a group might not decide to access healthcare, and nor should they. If you're a really great provider, why should you get less of a rate in hourly? We recognize that. So we certainly, when the need serves the group, we look for that insurance opportunity. We're able to do that because we are a larger group. We are able to work with insurance companies in a different capacity. We have experts in that lane who are fantastic at that negotiating, at that billing, at that overhead. So if it works and if it makes sense for all, we certainly hope that that is something that we can offer, and then by virtue of that, gain more access to more clients, and they can use that. But if it's a private pay situation and it works for that practice, it's not a one-stop. It's not a non-starter. We are really looking to identify practices that have strong leaders, that have a foothold in the community, that have an understanding of their clients, that want to grow either in additional locations, want to grow in additional treatment modalities, want to grow additional providers. And we partner with them. We really listen to each situation, nuanced situation. There's not one size fits all. And we try to partner and meet with them where they are, and then accelerate that growth and optimize that growth, not only for the practice, but again, access to the clients and so on.
Great.
I would just add to that, if you can hear me all right. I think oftentimes we get the question of, what is our goal? Like, what's the end result? And there's a statistic out there. I don't have it off the top of my head, but the number of mental health providers who are fee for service by necessity, because in their markets, commercial insurance is not, does not reimburse at a level that is sustainable. And, when these practices are, trying to go and network on their own, they don't have any bargaining chip to go to the large commercial insurer in their market to get some parity. And, when they're part of a larger organization, we can go out, on behalf of them. And ultimately, like, that would be, to be able to get more clinicians to be able to see a much broader subset of the population, because now we can, get favorable reimbursement for them, and it's now makes sense to go and network. That's a great outcome, and it's something that won't happen overnight. That's something that we've got to build towards, and every practice and every specialty that we bring on and specialist, and we can say that, look at what the patient population, how we're serving them, that and that demands a higher reimbursement. That's the long game. And I think if we can make a chip at that as an organization, and that's what we're driving towards.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit, for practice owners, when is the right time to consider a sale? What should they be thinking about?
Yeah, so there's not a perfect time necessarily, but to start thinking about it, and to start planning for it. Oftentimes Anya and I and our team, we'll have conversations with folks where they're not ready. Maybe they're years out. Maybe they're even further than that. But and sometimes we have the conversation, and they said, "Gosh, I wish I've had. This is the phone call I've been waiting for. I'm ready to go." And oftentimes that is, predicated on, life circumstances, whether it's, sometimes retirement is the goal and they're ready for that, or, their life takes them in a different direction, or they have other passions that they're looking, to pursue. There could be a host of examples. We've heard a lot of different examples. But, and so our goal is, we don't necessarily say, hey, the first conversation, if you're not ready to sell, it's not the right time. So, for us, I think the education part of it is really important, and, to get these practice owners, thinking about it, and maybe something that, that we offer, that we say really resonates, and And because oftentimes these practice owners don't necessarily know that there's an option, especially as they become, larger group practices, and it becomes, their kind of decision what to do next, where the next chapter is for themselves or their practice, is they're not quite sure about it. So having, talking that out with the practice owners, we can oftentimes identify or help them, plan out if a sale makes sense or not. Anya, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, I'll just add, we have such a variety in the groups that in my time that we've brought on, the variety of leaders. And it's important to note that when we talk about a sale, most often it's not a sale where that leader moves on and out. We actually want to partner. We want them to be included as a leader in that process and continue that space. So we've had groups that are looking to expand their footprint. They want an additional lease, but they're nervous about taking that step, being hooked onto that lease. They want support with hiring additional providers. They are looking to write a book. They want to develop a fellowship program, and they're just maxed in time. They love the practice. They want to continue it, but they need that partnership in the overall operations and growth, and would really like someone else taking kind of a bit of that risk with them. And that's why they partner with us. So it's when I say sale and I think about the sale, I envision kind of like this cutoff and the leaders leave. That's not what we're talking about. It looks very different. And I think that's really powerful.
Absolutely. Okay. And what does the process entail when you do decide that perhaps an owner is ready to move forward? Is there any information you could share with our listeners on that?
Sure. So we usually connect, as Will was mentioning, in an intro kind of meeting, and we really identify a lot about the practice. How many providers, what's the goal, the locations, what's your client look like? So we really are getting the nuanced understanding of the practice. And then from there, there's typically an NDA, an exchange of financial information, so that we really can have a bit more of a deliberate conversation of what this would look like, how we can support, how we think we can support and add value. And then from there, we typically look towards a letter of intent. So an agreed upon conversation about what we really thought, what we really think we can do. And if that's, great on both sides of the fence there, we move forward to what we call a due diligence period. And that's just a bit of a deeper dive of the information previously shared to get to that letter of intent. And then from there, we move on to, the sale, the bill of sale, the underwriting, kind of the agreements. And then from there, we do a really nice handoff. So it's not a matter of, okay, it's sailed and kind of, again, hard stop and switch over. We make sure that the team feels heard, and we can look, the team in the eye and understand who our operations team is, who our human resource people are, all the opportunities that we offer, which include CEs, compliance training. We have a fantastic diversity, equity, and inclusion division, so opportunities with that as well, and really get everyone excited and kind of moving forward.
I would just add to that, it's even from the initial conversation, through due diligence, up to closing, we're having an ongoing dialogue, with the other party, to not only continue to learn more about the practice, but also to set ourselves up for the ultimate announcement and communication to the clinicians and to the staff, because for both parties, that is the most important element to all of this. And we want to make sure that it's communicated well in the right way, and that the value is really articulated to them, because oftentimes they don't know, and they're going to be a deer in the headlights when they first hear it, and need the reassurances that this is a benefit for you, and not only financially, but also for all the other opportunities that this brings to them and to the practice, and then what the former owner is going to be doing, post closing. And maybe that's, maybe that's a very similar role that they're doing today, and now they have the resources and the platform to do it. And other times, they may modify their role. Maybe they want to do, a little bit more clinical than they used to, or maybe they, are looking to do something even larger with our leadership team nationally, something that they're doing special that they, want to, educate other practice leaders and others in our organization. So tons of different, varieties there, but, just getting that communication so there's a smooth transition and works for both parties.
One of the big trends I've been seeing is this talked about shared risk and shared costs with regard to insurance companies. And I think that's off the radar of a lot of individuals. And I've been bringing this up from podcast to podcast. Can you guys speak to what you've been hearing from the national insurances about shared risk and how that's been going to be impacting presently and moving forward 3-5 years from now? Yeah.
It's certainly a new concept. I'd say we're in the first inning, to use the baseball analogy that way. And I think a lot of, talk about, maybe, 10-person practice, that's not even on their radar or a consideration set. They're working, kind of moving their practice along. I think it's something that, obviously the insurance companies are interested in it. And I think larger groups are now, able to, to have these conversations and look into them. And it, just by the nature of its name, it's there's risk, on both sides. So both groups have to be, confident in this. And, we see it, oftentimes in the primary care integration side, as well. So, and certain payers are at different stages with it too. It's it's definitely a newer concept. We're starting to see it more and more and come up in conversations. Anya, I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, I think it's well said. And I think you bring up another great trend is that behavioral integration piece, which I'm really proud of the efforts and the focus that Refresh is bringing to that front. I think it's needed. It's been long awaited. We're leaps and bounds. We're far off from where it needs to be, but we are certainly putting our efforts there. Primary care physicians, making that ease and that fluid conversation between mental health and healthcare as a whole. We're fortunate to be able to have some conversation around that, have some success, particularly in the East Coast market. We're in late conversation with a lot of other groups out here as well. And I'm excited to see where that takes off and how that impacts insurance and payers overall.
And where can our listeners learn more about Refresh Mental Health?
Well, one place they could start is our website. It's www.refreshmh.com, and there's a join our practice tab on there, and there's a specific web page that talks about selling the practice and some of the considerations. They can also reach us at the development@refreshmentalhealth.com, and that from the website, they'll be able to find a way to connect with us and to facilitate, an introductory conversation.
And I would add, just reach out to one of us. We are always, I love, what I do. I love connecting with practice owners and understanding their mission, how they came to be, where their kind of weak pain points are. And I love that. So having conversations with myself, with Will, find us on LinkedIn, just connect with us. We are always open. Oftentimes I lead a conversation by saying, this is a dialogue. There's no harm in having a long-term conversation. I know that Will's had some groups where he's had years of conversations with. There's not a pressure. There's not a time frame that we're beholden to. We're really looking to explore conversations. So reach out.
Yeah, that's wonderful information for our listeners. Like you had indicated, there's no hurt in having a first conversation or learning a little bit more. So that's all great information to definitely leave with today for our listeners who joined us. Well, I want to thank both of you so much for joining us here today. It was a great topic that we were excited to shed some light on, something that may not be on some practice owners' radars, but important nonetheless. So we'll be sure to include your web addresses in the tags here on our podcast, as well as more information where they can both find both of you to connect directly. So thank you so much for taking the time today to be with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Kevin.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And to our listeners of the Barrier Breakdown, thank you so much for being here with us this week. As always, you can find us on Instagram at Cognitive Behavior Institute, on our website, www.cbicenterforeducation.com, where we have low-cost, robust continuing education events, as well as our Facebook page, Cognitive Behavior Institute and Cognitive Behavior CBI Center for Education. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today this week. And as always, if you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, we'd be most appreciative so that other listeners can certainly find us as well. We hope everyone stays safe and healthy, and we will be in touch next week. Take care, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Barrier Breakdown, Disrupting Mental Health podcast. Check out our website at cbicenterforeducation.com for more information and to learn about upcoming continuing education events.